everyone. First, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional land of the Ngunnawal people of the lands of Canberra and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. So hello, my name is Elise and I'm here to talk to you today about the Open Practice Library. So what is the Open Practice Library? To give you a very brief rundown before we get stuck in, it is an open source repository of practices that help people work better together. This spans everything from DevOps to agile to business transformation, lots of different things all in one space. So today I want to run through the history of OPL, which is the short version of Open Practice Library, what it is today, how to use it. I'm going to do some practice spotlights so you can understand about what the practices are and how to use them. I'll run you through a real life use case of how I've structured using these practices. And we'll also try some together and see how we go. And then I'll run you through how to contribute if you want to be a part of this great project, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. So right back in 2016, which believe it or not was 10 years ago, which is a bit scary to think about, but OPL was born out of Red Hat Open Innovation Labs. It was designed to solve the problem of needing a shared space for all these great ways of working. You've got so many different styles, so many different people with all these like amazing ideas of how people can work together, but they're not necessarily written down anywhere. They may be in people's minds, they may be in a slide deck somewhere, but actually having a single location for all these things was how OPL was created. And fast forward to 2020, the pandemic happened, of course, we don't need to revisit all that. But then a small global team came together from right across US, Australia, Asia, Europe, and all different kinds of people. You had your engineers, you had your product developers, PMs, and engagement leads, developers, everyone in between came together to really kind of make this OPL great, and they have done so. So fast forward to today, we have over 250 practices in this library and over 140 contributors as well. Not to mention other people who give feedback here and there and help out where they can, which might not necessarily be a practice, but in many other ways as well. So I've said library, I've said repository, but what actually is it? It is a library online. So it's a website you can go to. If you Google openpracticelibrary.com, you'll be taken there. And it's this like beautiful, colorful website with all these interactive components that will help you find your way around the website. So you can see up top here, we've got that Mobius loop, and I will dive deeper into that later on. And then you have all your practices below. They're all structured in alphabetical order, or you can click on different stages of that Mobius loop and that will take you to the different practices associated with that stage. So how is a practice itself structured? I've picked out one that I'll talk more about later, and I really like this one. So you click on the practice, it's got that title and then subheading and a bit about the contributor as well. It also goes through the what, the why, the how. This one even has a sample agenda, and it also tells you a bit about who should be involved in this practice. We've also got a little image for this one. So some practices have images from people who have actually done this in real life, taken a photo, put it online, so you can see what kind of to expect in that way. There's also linked resources as well. Might be YouTube, could be a file to print out, which you can use in the practice. And that's all in there in the one place. So it's a really great tool for different practices for how to get people to work better together, as I said, which is everyone from developers to your tech writers to even maybe a CIO. Everyone's involved, and this is how to actually get that to happen. So I want to dive deep on this Mobius loop. This is kind of the site's form of navigation. So for those not familiar with the Mobius loop, but it has these different stages which kind of correlate to what you might expect when you're implementing a tech project, or even working as a BAU team, you still kind of go through these different stages at different points. So you have your discover. That's kind of where you're understanding the problem. You need to figure out if the problem that you're trying to solve is actually the problem, or is it something else? And then also what the solution for that might be, making sure you get the right solution for the right problem. Once you've kind of figured out a bit of that, then you go into that middle section, which is decide. So this is where, okay, you know kind of what you need to do, but you need a little bit more direction on how to do it. So maybe you need to prioritize, maybe you need to make decisions on what to do next, what not to do, and go from there. And that moves into the delivery space. So how are you actually going to do this? Are you going to have a team? What's that team going to look like? How's that team going to work? How are you going to make this actually happen? And from delivery, sometimes you end up going back into decide and then back into deliver again. Or you might go back into discover and think, okay, let's go back to the start. Let's go see what we need to do from there. And as you can tell, this infinity type shape has no beginning or end in a sense, although most people might start at discover. There's probably been some decide that's happened to get there as well. At the bottom, we have the foundation. These are all the things that enable you and your team to really work as a team. So things like maybe you want to decide on a way that your team wants to work. What are your team expectations of each other? And really build that foundation to then be able to do the discover, the decide, and the deliver. So now I want to do a bit of a practice spotlight. I've picked out here 4 different practices from each kind of different phase from that Mobius loop. So starting with stakeholder mapping, this is a really powerful tool to kind of solve that problem of you started a project, there's so many new names and faces, who is who? Who do you really need to care about in terms of involving in your project, keeping informed, and know who to go to for what. So what this practice involves is you create like a little axis, a little graph, and there's a photo of that on the online stakeholder mapping practice on OPL as well. And you put power on one axis and interest on the other. And then you put all the people that are involved onto that, depending on their power and their interest. And then from there, you kind of see, okay, who do we need to consult? Who do we need to involve? Who just needs to stay informed? So for example, you might have a CIO, which is very powerful, but maybe little interest in what your BAU team's doing. That's someone who you need to keep informed at a high level, but like not maybe talk to day, because to be honest, they don't care. And then you might have a tech writer, on the other hand, who has very high interest, but very little power. So that's someone who you really need to involve because they are making things happen. They're part of the team at a really important level. So this kind of is a great practice to kind of bring together who's who, make it really clear, and make it really clear not just what the role of that person is, but actually where they fit into your project. And that fits into that discovery phase of just setting everything out for your project. Next, for that decide intersection on the loop, I've picked out the Moscow method, and this is all about prioritizing and categorizing. So this is one that you might be more familiar with, but we'll be very familiar with the situation where you might need it. You have a bunch of work to do. Where do you start? How do you know what to do first? It's not always clear, which is how you can use this method. So it actually stands for must, could, should have, could have, and won't have. So based on that, you know, what is an absolutely critical thing to do to get success in your project? That is a must have. A should have is like, yeah, not quite critical, but still really important. You really should do it to make your project successful. A could have, that kind of falls into the nice to have category. So is that something that you really do want, but it's not critical? You could take it or leave it. And then you have your won't have. So that is where it's actually out of scope or it's just not going to be done this time around. You may park it for a later date, but what you're focusing on now is not that. And this Moscow method really enables you to see clearly what your direction is and decide where to start. So you know your must-haves is absolutely what you've got to start with. I mentioned before the 4 L's retrospective, and this is really a good practice for structuring your retrospective. So just to touch on what a retro is, just for anyone who doesn't know, that's where you kind of have a time to reflect on what you've just completed, whether that's a sprint, whether that's a project. You come together as a team and you talk about how it all went, what worked, what didn't work. The 4 L's stand for what was liked, what was learned, what was lacked, and what was longed for. So for example, for this one, you could say, we really liked that we communicated with the end users well and truly before we went live, so they're all prepared. You could have learned that maybe you should have done a bit more of a comprehensive user acceptance testing. So that's something that maybe you could do next time. You could have lacked for a stronger project manager who really made sure you're hitting all those milestones at the right point. And again, that's something you can do next time. Something you could long for might be an extra week, because who wouldn't want an extra week on a project, let's be honest. And then having these 4 L's, and you have your categories for what happened in each L segment, that means you have a really actionable set of things to do for next time or to not do next time. And that gives a really strong structure to your retro. For the foundation practice, I've picked Stop the World. This is quite a powerful practice, because we all have had a point in a project where you've been running along fine and then you hit a little or a big speed bump, and maybe you've had some new information come to light that actually changes the entire course of what you're going to do next. Pretty stressful time when this happens, but if you can empower each team member to be able to put their hand up and say, we need to stop, we need to come together, we need to discuss how we're going to move forward with this, then that's really powerful. So although it's not a sit down, learn, stop the world kind of practice, it's a how are you going to enable all your team members to be able to put their hand up if that happens and say, okay, let's reevaluate our path forward from here. So I want to talk through a real life use case that I've done before. So another familiar scenario, you have a BAU team, which in this case I was a part of. We were functioning fine. We were seemingly working really well. We just kind of were doing things as they came in. Like so-and-so from service desk says, this isn't working. Okay, we'll fix it. Working that really reactive way. We didn't have any long-term goals. We weren't thinking, oh, okay, like we actually want to automate all these processes because that fits into our cybersecurity goals. It wasn't anything like that. So we also had no method to actually track our work or be able to measure success. We didn't have any kind of, we're just showing up to work each day, doing what needed to be done, going home. That was kind of it. So I put together a 3-day workshop for our team to do, and I used all OPL practices for it, and it actually had a really good outcome. So one of the problems we had was we didn't have that overall goal. We weren't all working towards anything as a team. So I used the mission statement practice to help define as a team what our overall goals were. So we looked at what our organisational goals were. So, you know, working for a different organisation, what do they actually want to achieve? And how are we going to help them get there? And what resonates with us as a team to actually want to work there to get there. So we came together and we defined our overall goals, and that set the tone for the rest of the practices we did too. So next up, we did the team canvas, because although we were all BAU tech team members, we kind of all had similar-ish roles, slightly different titles, but like, what does that really tell you? It doesn't tell you what someone's strengths are or what someone wants to learn next in a tech scenario. So we had that team canvas to kind of, okay, what is your role? Yes, you do have to kind of pay attention to what are they contracted to do, or what is the, you know, what's in the fine print, but at a higher level, what do they want to be doing? What are they good at doing? And where do they want to go next? And really leaning into that so we can say, okay, this guy loves patching. That's all he wants to do. So we can actually, you know, let him do the patching. Or, okay, this person wants to do more PM style work. We can actually lean into that too and like have those understood roles and responsibilities between the team. So then we can kind of know, okay, patching go to this person, PM go to that person, and have that understanding for each other as well. So then we had kind of understood our mission, we'd understood our roles. Then we looked at, okay, we have all this work in our day-to-day. Where does that fit in with our mission statement and our roles and responsibilities? And also, what else do we want to do to help achieve our mission statement? So we use the Moscow method to put together a big list of all our things, which is terrifying to look at. And then we looked at, okay, what's a must-have? What is a should-have? What is a could-have? What is a won't-have? And it was actually quite surprising to figure out, like, oh, okay, that's actually matches exactly what we want to achieve. So we're going to focus more on that. Or this thing here that we've been working on for, you know, it kind of keeps getting pushed to the side. There's a reason for that. It's because it doesn't actually fit in with our goals. And we actually don't need to work on that at all. So it really clearly defined where to start next and how to keep building that path forward. Next up, as I said before, we had no way to track our work. I didn't know what the person next to me was doing on their day-to-day. We're both just kind of a bit siloed, bit tunnel vision, just doing our own thing. So we created a Kanban in a shared space that we could all access easily. And that is, for those who don't know, I feel like Kanban is just everywhere these days, but you have your backlog, you have your in-progress tasks and your completed tasks at a very, very simple level. Can be more complex than that. But that allowed us to see, okay, I've finished my task, what can I do next? Oh, okay, this person's actually already doing that. Maybe I'll see if they need any help. Or okay, we've actually done 20 things this week and that's a really big win for us. Let's share that with our leaders as well. And then we also implemented a daily stand-up. So we didn't touch base as a team on ever. So it was good to have like a little moment each day to come together, say hello, and also talk about, well, what are you doing today? What am I doing today? Having that mental preparation to set us up for the day ahead. And then also figure out, okay, this person's struggling with this. They've been working on the same thing for 3 days. How can we help out as a team? And kind of figure out how we can support each other that way as well. And stand-up's nice because it's so quick. It's like you can come together for 5-10 minutes. It can be in person or online. Like, it worked really well and we all felt closer as a team for that. Lastly, we implemented retrospectives. So we've done all this work, all these other practices, but we wanted to actually revisit them and think, is this still working for us? Is this still relevant? So we had those check-ins to look for, you know, can we improve something? Is something not working? Have we learned a lesson that we want to share with the whole team? And have those reflective moments to actually come together and learn together and grow together. Okay, I've got a little interactive component here, and you don't have to move from your seats. You don't even have to open your mouth if you don't want to. So I think everyone can hopefully contribute to this one. So this is a practice called confidence voting. What it aims to do is gain consensus around a team's agreement or disagreement on the current activity, event, or questions by holding up fingers. So our example scenario that we're going to work with is, do we go bowling for the team activity? Completely theoretical, of course, but how we do this is you hold up no fingers for you just worst idea ever, you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. One finger, you have some really serious concerns about bowling that you should sort out first, but you don't want to block this activity. 2, you have some concerns, maybe you don't really like bowling, but you'll just go along with it anyway. 3, you support the idea. You're not not over the moon, but you support it. 4, you like it, you sound good, you want to do it. 5, you probably already have bowling shoes and you're ready to go whenever. So what we'll do is on the count of 3, I'll get you all to hold up your chosen fingers. And if you do 0 fingers, I might ask to hear why. And if none of you have 0 fingers, then I might pick on some 5s to hear, okay, why do you love bowling so much? Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Ooh, okay. A really big range, actually. May I ask you why no fingers? Just testing me.
I just wanted to try out having no fingers to see what the effect would be.
And how do you feel?
On the spot.
Can't say I didn't warn you. All right, who had some 5 fingers that they were like, Paul, can you share your thoughts on why you're a 5?
I think it's a great team activity where it's not people against people. My score doesn't diminish yours. Everyone has a great time. So let's do it. Let's go.
All right. See you after. So that is just a really quick practice that kind of shows you how you can use one of the OPL practices to quickly kind of make a decision, for example. So now we know, like, okay, someone was absolutely not going to go bowling, even though they said they might just be testing me. Or you got some people were absolutely thrilled to go bowling, so maybe head in that next direction. If you're doing this in real life, you've got some 0s, then it's like, okay, maybe we pick another activity. We'll pick rock climbing and vote on that, see if we can get a consensus that way. But most of all in that situation, we had mostly, I'd say 3s or higher, so we probably would be going bowling. So now I've just blown your socks off about OPL. I'm sure you're all wondering how you can be involved and how you can contribute. I've popped a QR code up that takes you to the OPL contribution guide, and that has everything you need to know about how to contribute, but I'll still talk you through it as well. So all of our practices on this website are contributed by people like yourselves. So if there's something up there you're like, oh, this isn't in here, you can contribute. If you know something really well and you're like, oh, I do it a bit of a different way, then you can contribute that too. You can help us improve what's already on there. Or if you even see like a little spelling mistake, because humans make all these practices for OPL, so it happens, you can tell us that too and we can help fix that up. Additionally, some things I've helped out on personally, I haven't contributed practices myself, but I've helped out with the social media, I've helped out fixing some little bug fixes in the back end. We work a lot through GitHub, and we have the brilliant Donna here as well, who I hear has a talk tomorrow, and she is kind of the backbone of OPL at the moment. So big shout out to her while we're here. But there's plenty of ways to contribute. You can also just share OPL, explore it yourself and see what works, what doesn't work. We're also working on adding in more languages as well. So we already have some in Spanish, and we're working on getting a whole Japanese version of the website, and I don't speak either of those languages, so clearly we need more people than just me and like some of our other contributors. We need people from everywhere, all experiences, and to make this thing even better. And our goal for OPL is just to have that shared space and that place to have all these practices in one spot, and then for it to be shared around. There's no like, I don't know, there's no like kind of incentive. We're not making money from it. It's just like this, here's this cool thing, let's all be part of it. Let's get people working better together, and I guess at the end of the day, happier in their day-to-day job as well. So to do a bit of a wrap up, so the Open Practice Library is an open source resource to help people work better together, and it spans all kinds of practices from all different ways of working, and it's free to use for anyone. what I would like you all to do is to explore the library, see for yourself how it works, see for yourself if you could use something in your day-to-day. Think of somewhere that your team or yourself gets stuck, whether that's a once-off, whether it's something that's repeated, and see if there's a practice in there that could actually help you move past that point. And lastly, I'd ask you all to contribute. The fabulous Donna brought this saying to my mind, which is you can contribute talent, time, or treasure. So kind of self-explanatory, but we do host this platform on Netlify, which is another way you can contribute if you have those tech skills. But, you know, all of these things are welcome and all of these things are needed to keep OPL up and running and what it is and free for all. So I'd like to thank you all for listening today, and thank you to Everything Open for having me. And I'd like to open up the floor for some Q&A.
Do we have some questions?
For particular practices like the voting one that we did in this room, are there ways of providing different variants of particular practices for different settings? For example, online voting. So it's like you've got the same objective. We want information from the cohort about their opinions about doing X, Y, or Z. And but maybe on one day you're doing something in a room with people, the next day you're doing it online. So you want to sort of accomplish the same outcome. So are there different, is there like variants of practices?
Yes, so a lot of the practices actually have tips on the online practice saying, okay, are you doing this online or in person? If you're doing it online, you know, maybe you don't have a whiteboard, so you could use something like Miro to actually accomplish the same outcome. For something like confidence voting, I actually was thinking about this one the other day, you could just ask everyone to put a number in the chat and go from there. There's a bit of imagination and creativity for if something doesn't already have an explicit online versus in-person way of working, but you're welcome to contribute an idea if you think of one that's not already on there.
So how does the review process work for the practices? I mean, is it like a GitHub where you have practice reviewers who make comments and people take the description of the practice and vary it according to the sort of feedback they get, or how does it work?
Yeah, so, well, we have Donna, who's the expert on this and the key reviewer, but you go to that contribution guide through that QR code I had up. It has a set of expectations for how you would contribute, and if you're contributing a practice, you have a bit of a template that you would fill out there as well. And then, yes, it gets reviewed by the maintainers, so there's just a couple of us, but we review it, and then, you know, if there's something that is changing that we need to reach out to you about, we reach out. If there's something simple like a little spelling error that we can easily fix, then we would probably take care of that and just move forward as well.
Is this kind of linked to the review process? I was wondering how much weight does evidence and potentially scientific evidence of the effectiveness of the practices come into play? Is that something that's required or encouraged to include in descriptions?
Not really. Donna, did you want to comment on this?
Thank you. Almost, well, I say none, but almost none. The main criteria that we ask for is it's that a practice that you use. I've had a couple of, I mostly accept contributions, just, yep, looks good, done. I've rejected a couple because I know it was original work that had not actually been used in practice. And I knew that because I knew the person who was contributing it. So I may have accepted things like that from others that I didn't have that knowledge of, But those that I did, I said, hey, look, I know you've just come up with this. Maybe you could go and use it in the real world and then come back and contribute it, right? So generally, we're not asking for evidence. We're just asking for that practitioner voice. The other question we get a lot is, I didn't come up with this. Can I contribute it? And we say, absolutely. So for instance, one of the popular practices is impact mapping by Goiko. He didn't contribute it, but I knew that the people who used it a lot did, and we make sure that we do attribution. And everything is released under Creative Commons. So you don't have to be the originator of it, but we really ask that you give attribution to the originator if you know who it was. One of the practices I've contributed myself is dot voting or dotmocracy. I couldn't find for the life of me who first came up with that. It's a practice that's been around with little stickers for decades, long before anyone did stuff online. So I am waiting for the day for the originator of dotmocracy or dot voting to come to me and say, I did that. I go, great, I will give you attribution the minute I know. Oh, there you go.
Any other questions? Yep, I see a hand.
So am I right in thinking this is a distillation of the way Red Hat work?
I would say no. It originated in Red Hat, and most of the contributors were originally Red Hatters. It has since devolved to anyone can contribute, and also a lot of those people have since moved on from Red Hat and then still contribute, and it just has ended up being not just Red Hat.
Okay. So I've got a sort of follow-up question. Like, this predates when Red Hat was acquired by IBM. Has an IBM, I'm sure, have got ways of doing some of these things. Has there been cross-fertilisation in either direction?
Not a lot. I completely forgot to mention and give you any background on who I am, but I was at Red Hat for a couple of years, and in my time there, I don't think I ever spoke to an IBM person, and I wasn't aware of any IBM people contributing to the Open Practice Library in particular. Donna? Go for it.
Great question. Tim Beattie is a former product owner of the Open Practice Library, a Red Hatter. He was chief product owner in the Open Innovation Labs. He was at IBM for many years before he joined Red Hat. And his contributions to the Open Practice Library are many, and he's still part of the council on Open Collective. He's no longer at Red Hat, he's running his own business. But he made the point that in his career in consulting, he created many of these kinds of practice libraries. They're all proprietary and behind closed walls. There was one at IBM. But at Red Hat, he was able to be involved in something that he now continues to contribute to. He's a downstream consumer of, he's built it into his product. So there is some IBM kind of fairy dust in there, if you like, and there are IBMers who have contributed and continue to use it. It's definitely not just the Red Hat way of doing things. The Red Hat way is in there though, because Red Hatters were involved. And that spark that Elise spoke about at the beginning was these Red Hatters were coming together to work in a particular way and wanted to share in a way what they were doing and their different sources and influences. And that was the birth of it. But because of that Red Hat, because of the open source DNA, it was like, well, why wouldn't we just make it available for everybody to use?
No, thank you. And yeah, really embracing that open source aspect that is Red Hat, and then that's led to the Open Practice Library being able to be created and to be able to be free to access.
It's not a Red Hat project. It's an open source project, and we consider it upstream. Like Red Hat now considers it upstream.
Okay, any other questions? No? Well, I know I, for one, will definitely be looking through it for ways to take some things back to my team.
Great.
So thank you again for an amazing presentation.